Well, I have some great news, everybody. Some really important, life-changing news. Just when I saw this, I thought, wow, my life will never be the same after this moment. And I just wanted to share this with everybody. Probably the best moment of my life so far. To this day, just I feel like everything in my life was leading me up to this moment. I tweeted Mark McGrath here. I said, Happy New Year, Mark McGrath. I was wondering if I could tell people that we are friends. Please respond. And I said, please respond, because I wanted to make sure that I was looking for a response from him. And I got a response from him. He said, Happy New Year, Finn. And yes, you can tell people we're friends because we are friends. And I won't lie. I got a little bit emotional. You know, I got kind of choked up. My wife noticed a single tear rolling down my cheek because she knew how much this meant to me. This is a moment that I've been looking forward to for my whole life. You know, I just kind of wanted to share that because, you know, I consider you guys friends, and I knew you guys would be excited for me just as much as I was excited for myself. Oh, and also in other news, obviously not nearly as cool, but also I found out that my wife and I, are having a boy. That was pretty cool. Obviously not as cool as Mark McGrath telling me that we're friends, but, you know, also we're having a boy. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool too, I guess. Whatever. Since a lot of people asked, you know, they said, what kind of music are you going to play for your son? I thought I would share that. I thought I would share the list of music that I was going to play for my son. Now, here's the thing. As we say, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Instantly, I thought of all the songs that I like and bands I like. And, you know, I just, oh, well, I'll play this. I'll play this. I'll play this. And I thought, wait a minute. We know that kids are going to rebel against whatever dad likes, right? So it's not as simple. You can't just force all the stuff you like on your kid because they'll rebel by getting into the opposite of it, right? So I thought to myself, well, the last thing I want is for my kid to get into art or music or be in a band or anything like that. So I thought, well, knowing that my son is going to rebel against me, what can I force on my son to make him take the actual course of action I want, which I hope he's into sports, science. Maybe he wants to be like school, like class president, business, something like that. As long as he doesn't get into music, art, or like, you know, weird politics or anything like that, then I'm happy. So I thought, what music should I force on him in order to get him to turn into the person I would like him to be? And so I thought we could go over a list of those songs. So the first thing that I thought of is Jocko-Rama by the Dead Kennedys, because the last thing I want is for my kid to be one of those nerds that thinks they're clever because he makes a joke about, you know, when it's Super Bowl time every year and he's like, oh, is everyone going to watch sports ball? And he thinks he's so clever because he calls it sports ball instead of football. Maybe he's into one of those like nerd sports, like soccer or hockey or something like that. So I thought, well, if I want him to get into sports when he's older, which I do, then I've got to force this song on him. I've got to tell him that sports are awful so that he'll rebel by getting into sports. And so I thought this song, Jocko-Rama by Dead Kennedys, would be a great place to start. My son is going to be into the greatest sport known to man, NFL football. If you like gorillas, we've got just the pet for you, because, you know, jocks are the enemy, right? Make your whole life revolve around sports, because being into sports is bad, but being obsessed with music or collecting Legos or some comic books is great, right? I think it's this a hilarious narrative that they tell you in all these Hollywood movies that, like, the jocks are the bad guys and, you know, the jocks go out of their way to pick on the emo kids and stuff like that. Here's reality, my friends, is that the jocks don't even know you exist. That's reality. They don't know or care about you because they are too busy being cool and popular and training in their sport to even think about you, right? They don't care at all. And I agree with this. The jocks were nicer than the metal fans in my experience. I was friends with a lot of the football players and stuff in my high school. They were all nice to me. We were friends with all of them. They were cool. That's right. Too busy touching boobies, finger blasting a cheerleader under the bleachers when you're at home jerking off over pictures of guitars and arguing in the comments section about whether, some band is real metal or not. So that's the first thing that I will force on my son. Jockorama by the Dead Kennedys. I'll tell him sports are evil, hoping that he'll rebel by actually becoming a jock. That would be my hope. And I'll say, no, I can't believe you want to play sports. I'm so angry and disappointed. Didn't you know jocks are terrible? You can't be a jock. And I'll secretly be going, yay. That's my plan. I do have to be careful to make sure my plan doesn't backfire and hope that he doesn't actually get into punk. But I'm willing to take my chances with that. My biggest fear is that he'll be one of these, I don't know, what's the right way to put it? Underachieving, just kind of loser burnout types. You know what I mean? The kind of people who just sort of trudge through life, smoking after school and have no ambition, or you know what I mean? I don't want my kid to be one of these sad burnouts. And when I think of being a sad burnout, the first song that comes to mind to me is Story of My Life by Social Distortion, which is a great song, but the lyrics, so cringe. See, look, sports are bad, right? You want to be the cool guy sitting in this dingy hotel room strumming on his Les Paul. High school, singing like such a blur. Didn't have much interest in sports or school elections. I didn't have much interest in sports or school elections. See, I want my son to have a lot of interest in sports or school elections. So we'll say, I will force this song on him, just hoping that it'll backfire. I mean, at least Mike Ness had cool hair. I will say that. I dreamed all day about a rock and roll weekend. My biggest fear is that my son will grow up to be in a band. That's my biggest fear. So last thing I want him to do is dream of rock and roll weekends. He's a loner that's above it all. That's right. Oh, my son headlines at Wacken? Ugh. The thought of my son getting into steampunk or rockabilly gives me night terrors, as it should. As it should. I look at the holes in my jeans and I turn look, again, the part where he says he wants to get a job, but he has no training or experience to speak of, so he just looked at the holes in his jeans, turned around, and went home. You know what that is, my friends? That is called a loser's mindset. The loser says, why should I even try? I know I won't get the job, so why should I even try? I'm just going to turn around and go home. So this would definitely be a song that I will force on my son, because the last thing I want is for him to be one of these burnout losers like they talk about in this song, and it is a great song. I'll admit that. Social Distortion is a good band, but I can't risk it. And the real problem with Social Distortion is if he ends up getting into Social Distortion, then next thing we know, he's going to get into rockabilly or ska, and we just can't have that. We just can't have that. I want to make sure my son has a healthy attitude about money and business. I don't want my son to be poor. Who wants to be poor? My wife and I both grew up on welfare. Last thing we want is for our kids to have to do that or ever be being poor sucks, right? I don't want my son to be a flexor or a materialist, but definitely don't want my kid to be one of these rich guy bad types, right? The kind of people that complain about billionaires on Twitter. Money's not the most important thing in the world, but what's even worse than being obsessed with money is being a rich guy bad type. And so I thought a good song to force on my son to get him out of that mindset is Capitalists Suck by DRI, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, from their actually great album, Dirty Rotten LP.
You're buying all day long. Double suck.
Yeah, fetishizing poverty, exactly. This is a great album.
They really suck.
Capitalists suck. They really suck. The fetishizing poverty is the worst. It's not healthy, my friends. Being poor is not righteous. Being poor just sucks. Anybody who fetishizes poverty is wealthy because no poor person is proud to be poor. Exactly. I don't know anybody who grew up poor that actually thinks there's anything cool or noble or, otherwise anything else to celebrate about being poor, because it sucks. And I'll tell you another thing is that going on Twitter or wherever else and complaining about how much money somebody else has is not going to make you any happier, right? Like just ranting about capitalism and whatever about billionaires is not going to make you any happier, my friends. Not going to do it. So, money definitely not the most important thing in the world, but you don't want to be poor either. So I'm going to make sure to force this on my son. So he'll go, capitalists suck, huh? Well, fuck you, Dad. I'm going to become upper middle class just to fucking spite you. I'll show you, Dad. I'm going to become financially comfortable in my late 20s and early 30s. I'm going to settle down and have a family just to spite you, Dad. Fuck you. You can't tell me what to do. And again, I'll say, no, son, don't do that. No, anything but that. No, don't do that to Dad. My other biggest fear is all of you watching right now who enjoy weed. I'm sorry, it's nothing personal. My worst fear is that my son will grow up to smoke weed, listen to Deftones, play in a shoegaze band, spend all his money assembling a pedal board, and complaining on Twitter about the reason why he's unhappy is because Jeff Bezos exists. That's the person I don't want my son to be. And so I thought, what better way to discourage him from smoking weed than to force him to listen to Kottonmouth Kings, right? We'll force him to listen to Kottonmouth Kings, and that'll cure him of any interest in smoking weed. I mean, do you want your kids to grow up to be one of these guys? Look at this. 36 years old, smoking weed in an apartment in Corona. You don't want that. Here we go. Hell yeah. The King Click. Shout out to King Click. Where's the weed at? My life goal is to be the DJ in a weed rap group. That's all I ever wanted. Listen, I like Kottonmouth Kings. I do. But it's one of these things. The thing I don't understand about weed is, why do people make weed into their whole identity? You know what I mean? Imagine being this excited about weed. Exactly. Listen, if you want to smoke weed, smoke weed. I don't recommend it. I think weed sucks. Yeah, I'm not addicted to weed. I could stop smoking anytime. I just don't want to. I feel like I want to smoke weed 6 times a day, but I don't have to. I'm not an addict. I could stop anytime I want. It just so happens that I enjoy smoking weed right when I wake up, before breakfast, after breakfast, at lunch, before dinner, after dinner, and then maybe while I'm watching TV, and then again right before I go to bed. That's all. But that doesn't make me an addict. I just don't really understand why people make weed into their whole identity. You know what I mean? Like, people who do a lot of coke don't talk about coke all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, they're definitely annoying people. Doing coke makes you a very, very, very irritating person. But they don't make it their whole identity, you know? Weed clears my mind. It makes me creative. Yeah, totally. I mean, weed, if there's one thing weed's known for, it's clearing your mind, right? All I would say is, son, please, never even do one weed. Because if you do one weed, next thing you know, you're going to be one of these guys. And, although it may seem tempting because these guys get to hang out with hot Fox racing girls 24/7, it's not worth it, son. It's not worth it. Never do one weed. Not even one weed. One weed is too much. It's deadly. So there we go. That's the next song I'll force on my son. Where's the Weed At? By Kottonmouth Kings. My next fear is that my son will end up being a nerd. You might think I'm a nerd, and you might be right about that. But listen, at least I'm not one of these guys, right? At least I'm not in some Weedly band. At least I didn't spend my teenage years playing guitar by myself to impress other guitarists on the internet. No, I was out there unsuccessfully, but at least I was trying to finger blast somebody. At least I was on the prowl. I was trying to touch a boob and do some finger blasting. Last thing I want is for my son to flush away his teenage years playing wheedly riffs in some nerdy band that only other dudes like. So I will force this song on my son. FCP Remix by The Fall of Troy. I mean, listen, you hear a riff like this, even just listening to this riff makes you certified you get no bitches. If you play this kind of music, you are maidenless, you get no bitches. You play this on a date, you will stay dry. That is absolutely, everyone's staying dry. The girls staying dry. Your fingers definitely staying dry. There is going to be no finger blasting as long as this song is playing. Is it wrong that I'm almost 40 and I kind of like this? I mean, I'll be honest. Yes, it is wrong. It is wrong, and I'm judging. I'm just saying. This band and hymn will protect you from any and all premarital sex. I'm trying to picture turning this on to hook up. I mean, listen, these kids are super talented, but it was many years before any of them touched a boob. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is this. How many people do you think Mark McGrath has finger blasted? Imagine you wrote out a list of every maiden that Mark McGrath has finger blasted. How many pages do you think you would need to get through that list, even if you wrote in really tiny little handwriting? If you wrote in the smallest writing you could, how many pages would you need to list every person that Mark McGrath has finger blasted? That's my question. And then let me ask you how long it would take you to write the list of how many people the boys in Fall of Troy have finger blasted. That's all I'm asking. An emo video with no emo girls, exactly. Completely maidenless, no finger blasting will be done to this song. And so that's the next thing I would force on my son, the Fall of Troy FCP remix, to make sure that he doesn't suffer the sad fate of becoming a maidenless prog rock virgin. What else do we have? Oh, this one. There's a lot to avoid here. Dropkick Murphys, Shipping Up to Boston. A lot of reasons to force this song on my son because there's a lot of things here that I desperately want him to avoid. A lot of reasons to be scared that my son would ever like Dropkick Murphys. Number one is just that all this like Irish punk, Celtic punk stuff is just cringe in general. This music is for Americans that for some reason fantasize about being Irish. I don't know why that's a thing. And I say this as someone named Finnegan O'Jennings Mckenty, which is a very Irish, or I guess it's apparently a Scottish name. So I get it. My family is of Irish descent. I understand the Irish-American thing, but the difference is I'm American. I don't understand this fixation some Americans have with pretending to be Irish. Like, why? Like this one here, the Irish by blood, American by birth, veteran by choice. I don't understand it. It's like this whole cottage industry of like just cringe. Irish-American, does it get and better? Any better, I think is what you're looking for. Or this one. What is this, like the thin Irish line? We've got this Irish M4 or whatever it is. Like, I don't get it. What is the fascination with being Irish? I don't understand it. So that's thing number one we got to avoid is just my son cannot be into any sort of, Irish Celtic punk crap. So I'm going to force this on him so he'll rebel. But the real enemy here is this hat. You see this hat right here? The scally cap. Oh, this is good. Wait a minute. This just came up in a Google search. This is the hat for my son. The flamed dad hat that says, I have sex on the front. Because you know who would wear this hat? Someone who has sex, right? I mean, how could you possibly wear this hat if you don't have sex? Clearly, I mean, the hat speaks for itself. Only a sex haver could wear this hat. But the real menace here is these hats. The scally cap. You can see how many people in this video have scally caps. Look at this. Just a horde of dumpy white guys in scally caps. This is the fate that's waiting for you if you listen to Dropkick Murphys too much. Next thing you know, one of these hats is just going to show up in your doorstep. And we just can't have that. My grandpa has that hat. And listen, if you're a grandpa, you can wear this hat, and that's fine. But my son is not going to be a grandpa anytime soon. What's next that I will force on my son? Obviously, we got to force real big fish on my son because we know that kids are going to rebel and hate anything that I force on him. Therefore, I must force ska on my son because the worst thing that could happen to a father is to find out that his son is into ska. Imagine this. You came home after a long day of work and your son comes up to you and he's like, Dad, I want to talk. You're like, sure, yeah, of course. What's up? It's like, I want you to know something about me. Okay, what? Well, I'm afraid to tell you because I'm afraid that if I tell you, you won't love me anymore. I'm like, no. Listen, there's nothing you could tell me that would make me stop loving you. You're my son. We love you and accept you just the way you are. And he says, well, I think I like ska. Like, I was afraid you were going to say this. You know, to be honest, your mother and I, we've wondered about this for a while. We thought you might like ska. And I just want you to know that we do still love you. I'll be honest with you. It's going to take me a while to get used to this. You know, your mother and I, we just grew up in a time where you didn't do that. You know, back in our day, it wasn't acceptable the way it is now. And if you are into ska, it's okay. We love you just the way you are. But just, if you would like us to pay for you to go to ska conversion camp, you know, we'll do that. Just try it. That's all I'm asking. Just go to ska conversion camp. And if you come back from camp still loving ska, well, then fine. We'll accept you the way you are. Then it's okay. But just give it a shot. Yeah, we're going to try to pray the ska away. A lot of kids these days, you know, I know it's trendy now to go through a ska phase. And if this is just a phase, you know, that's okay. It's right. My son says, no, Dad, you don't understand. You're born ska. It's not a choice. Like, son, if this is who you are, then so be it. But just give us time to come to terms with this. That's all I ask, son.
She has a girlfriend, now she said, guys don't do no more for me.
That's right. Our state just passed a Don't Say Ska law, as they should. I just worry that the schools these days are forcing ska on our kids. You know, have you seen some of these public school teachers with their ska agenda? I won't have it. I can't control what they teach you at school, but in this house, we want to indulge the ska lifestyle. It's sick. It's critical ska theory. Exactly. I won't have it. So I will make sure to force real big fish on my son just to make sure that he rebels and never sets foot at a ska show, because that would be Dad's worst nightmare. Yeah, maybe last but not least, a few things here with this one. Pink Floyd, Money. It's maybe the last song that I'll force on my son for a couple reasons. Number one, you don't want your kid to be one of those born in the wrong generation kids, right? It feels like this is a type of kid that just will always be around. So, you know, there's like the angry Eminem type dudes, like white dudes that walk around in Sean John jumpsuits and are just mad at the world, and they've existed since the 90s and they will exist forever. And there's like the Heshers that will exist forever, like the Metallica, Megadeth kids that will exist forever. I feel like the classic rock kids are going to exist forever too. You know, the kind of kids that wear the Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix shirts from Walmart and insist that they're born in the wrong generation. I'm only 13 and all my friends listen to Drake and 21 Savage and Jack Harlow, but not me. I'm into real music. Like and share if you're one of the 5% of teens still listening to Queen, David Bowie, and Pink Floyd in 2023. My dad tried to force Pink Floyd on me. I feel scarred listening to this. Exactly. And so the last thing I want is for my kid to be one of those born in the wrong generation kids. Here's what you do, people. Here's what you do. Whatever the cool kids are listening to, that's what you should listen to. Do not rebel against what the popular kids heard. This is what I did when I was in high school. I thought it was too cool for that. Think about how much finger blasting I could have been doing if I just went along with whatever the cool kids are into. Whatever the cool kids are into, just go along. Even if you don't like it, even if you don't really like it, just say that you do. If everyone else is like, hey, did you see that new movie over the weekend? Just say yes. And if they're like, oh, did you think it was cool? Like, what did you guys think? And like, oh, we liked it. And you're like, yeah, that's what I think too. Just go along with it. Been giving us a WikiHow tutorial on finger blasting. Look, I'm just trying to help. No offense, but if you're the type of person that is tuning into my stream to hear me talk about weird music, I'm gonna guess that you didn't do a lot of finger blasting in high school. Just gonna guess. So it's never too late to have a good run of finger blasting later in life. So I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to help you and potentially your children do more finger blasting. That's all. I'm just trying to help. My dad put headphones around my mom's stomach and would play Iron Maiden and Ozzy when I was brewing gateway bands in the womb. And Ben, how much finger blasting have you done? That's my question. Your kids should be listening to NBA Youngboy. If they're listening to anything with guitars, you failed. Exactly. Listen, here's the problem. If your kids are listening to ska and The Fall of Troy and System of a Down, your bloodline is basically dead. You will never have grandchildren because your children, your son, will be condemned to be a virgin. So listen, it's for the sake of continuing your bloodline that we have to fight against this. So listen, that's my plan. I want my son to be into sports, business, science. I want my son to be popular. Most of all, I want my son to be very, very, very busy finger blasting his way through adolescence. And because of that, I need to save him from himself. As a parent, I need to take advantage of the fact that I know he's going to rebel against whatever I force on him. So I'm going to force all this stuff on him. Dead Kennedys, Pink Floyd, Social Distortion, Real Big Fish, Dropkick Murphys, Follow Troy. That's what I'm going to force on him for his own good. Nobody ever ended up finger blasting OnlyFans girls by listening to Pink Floyd and Real Big Fish. So I owe it to my son to do better as a parent than that. Just trying to help.